Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 3 interviews. Let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. By the way, if you ever see anyone impersonating me, which actually happened recently, let us know. Email me. If you comment below, I probably won't see it. Sometimes on YouTube, someone will have my name and my picture and will be commenting and trying to scam you of something. They're usually trying to sell you something, crypto or I don't know. So let us know because we can contact YouTube and get the person removed. Let's watch.
From Zenib the most in the pods where it was like, oh wow, like this may be somebody I could be with.
Well, first of all, I loved her voice. Like she had this like incredible, positive, enthusiastic voice. Her responses and her laugh would just get me. But then beyond that, it was just like, whenever you just connect with someone and it's like, oh, you like talking about what I like talking about, and you make me laugh, and you want to do things that seem cool to me, and you want to travel to that place, and I do too, and oh, you work hard, and you have business ideas, and like all that, right? It was everything.
Right.
It's interesting. I don't think I'd thought about this, but it seems like a major part of the show is that, and I'll rewind it and we'll listen to the things that he identified as reasons why he fell in love, supposedly, and proposed to Zenib. Because certainly a lot of those things are important, but then you think about the contrast with that, with how the data that was gathered by him and her when they actually were together in person during the honeymoon and beyond, that because I feel like this is what a lot of people do. They will have these boxes that they'll want to check. They'll be like, okay, check, you can make me laugh. Check, you have a job. Check, these, you love your family or you want kids. And certainly if these are deal breakers, then have them be deal breakers. But the reason why we typically, it's in terms of mainstream American marriages, the reason why we fall in love and get married and stay together and enjoy each other and stay in bonded with each other has much more to do with all these intangibles, things that you only can really know if you experience the person in 3 dimensions, right? So let's rewind and hear his list.
Well, first of all, I loved her voice. Like she had this like incredible, positive, enthusiastic voice. Her responses and her laugh would just get me. But then beyond that, it was just like, whenever you just connect with someone and it's like, oh, you like talking about what I like talking about, and you make me laugh, and you want to do things that seem cool to me, and you want to travel to that place, and I do too, and oh, you work hard, and you have business ideas, and like all that, right? It was everything.
Yeah, he frames it as everything, but it wasn't everything, because as soon as they met in person, they had massive differences and I would say pretty significant conflict. And so how do we put that into words? What is that? What's that box? I would generally say that box is, how often do you fight? Can you resolve your fights? Do you understand each other? Does she give you the benefit of the doubt? How sensitive are the two of you to being hurt? How differentiated are you? There's a big one, right? I just had a thought, like I should come out with maybe another t-shirt or something that has a bunch of boxes of the sort of things that y'all should look for if you're dating. I mean, that would be a thing, right? I'm imagining there's at least one of you that's like, oh yes, that would be fun. Because then you could have a list of boxes that you should, maybe like handouts or something, like you go on a date and you like, maybe there's different ratings, and there of course would be like, I don't have enough data yet. It'd be, I don't know what sort of form this would take, but yeah, like, well, I'll rattle off things off the top of it. So how differentiated, and listen to my episodes on differentiation. I do a whole deep dive on Bohemian therapy. I talk about it. It's pretty complicated, and if you've ever been a student of mine, you probably know all about it. And if you're a family therapist, you know all about it. But the general idea of differentiation, it can sort of be summarized as mature, but really it's kind of emotional intelligence, emotional maturity, is the ability to, one, differentiate between your emotional reactivity and your evaluative reasoning mind, and also your ability to differentiate between self and other. To self and other is, your feelings are yours and they're not mine, but I will interface with them if it is healthy for us to do so. So if we're in love and we're like, oh my God, I'm so in love, and we're safe and everything's good and I want to do this and you want to do that, then we can meld together as two can become one and become fused and undifferentiated voluntarily, because that experience of bonding is what we need as human beings, for the vast majority of us at the very least. So we can choose to bond and we can choose to separate. So if we're having a conflict, I can now say, okay, you're having a feeling and I'm having a feeling, what's going, or you're at work and your coworker is having a bad day, you have the ability to be like, well, okay, they're having a bad day, but I'm not having a bad day. Whereas fused people can't differentiate. Someone's having a bad day, now they're having a bad day, and it's very discombobulating to them. And, so there's that differentiation and choice and, intention and voluntary fusing. And then there's the feeling state, or the feeling motivational system and the reasoning system. So you are waking up after, you're in the pods, you fall in love, you have sex, you meet the person, you get engaged, you have sex, you wake up in the morning and he's a little standoffish, and you have this feeling of he's being a jerk face, he's rejecting me, it's all over, I can't believe the way he's treating me, I'm so angry. Differentiated individuals are able to go, well, wait a second. So this is how I feel. I feel rejected, I feel scared, I feel hurt, I feel angry. Is that rational? Let me look at it for a second. Maybe it is rational. Maybe it does make sense. Maybe this will help me in the end, because my goal is I'm trying to bond with this person, I'm trying to get to know them, I'm trying to marry them. And if I allow myself just to act on my feelings without evaluating them, I run the risk of countering my own needs and my own wants. So I might look at it and say, like, well, is this just a tense moment? Am I just reading into things? Is there enough data here to justify the assumption that he's being a complete a-hole? Maybe I'll relax and, I'm having the feelings, but I'm not going to let them dictate my behavior, because there's really no reason to believe that those feelings are accurate or not. Maybe I'm picking up on something, but maybe I'm just nervous. Maybe there's just a lot at stake, and so that's differentiation. There's a lot of different manifestations. So you can notice your feelings, but you're not run by your feelings. You can look at them and you can choose, should I go with my feelings, or should I evaluate my feelings and go, well, wait a second here, and have a different perspective. That's also differentiation. And we could say that that's maturity or emotional intelligence or wisdom or something. So that would be one big box that I would say that you should look for in a partner. It doesn't mean that if someone is undifferentiated that they would be a disaster, but research shows that undifferentiated people have a harder time with relationships, absolutely. A very related concept would be self-awareness of their emotions and their attachment reactivity. I wouldn't expect everyone to be well-versed in this topic, not like, I'm guessing, someone emailed me, I can't remember who it was, and said that they were talking with their mom, who is a clinician. So a listener, one of you is not a clinician, but your mom is. And so you were talking with your mom, and your mom was bringing up different clinical concepts. And you, as a viewer of this YouTube channel, were able to have a conversation about that. Well, this and this and this, technical conversation. And the mom was like, how do you know so much about psychology? and you said, well, there's this YouTube channel. And so I don't expect everyone to have your level of understanding, right? But you should have some level of understanding, some self-awareness, like some ability to take responsibility, to be like, yeah, you know what, sometimes when people do this, when I'm dating and that happens, it hurts my feeling. If the person is able to say that, it's a tall order, but it would be nice to be able to check that box. It would be a very humongous green flag. It's like Dr. Kirk's green flags in dating. Ooh, that's nice. Dr. Kirk's dating green flags. Dr. Kirk's dating green flags. I would say another one would be, do they listen? Do they actually listen and ask you questions? Do they remember things that you tell them? That's a simple, that's a ground level thing, right? Now, there's probably other things, but for Cole, maybe that's all included in his list here, but I think it's safe to say that the boxes that he was focusing on, or the data that he had to give him the ability to check those boxes in the pods, were not sufficient. There were other boxes, maybe even more fundamental boxes, that could only be evaluated once you actually met someone in person.
You make me laugh, and you want to do things that seem cool to me, and you want to travel to that place, and I do too. And you work hard, and you have business ideas, and like all that, right? It was everything.
Yeah, and just another little asterisk here is that I will hear a lot of people when they begin dating is that they're like, oh, I'm looking for someone that is career oriented or something like that, because their previous two partners were not, and that was a problem. And I'm always like, okay, that's great, but do you have other things on your list? Because career-oriented, fine, but there are much more fundamental things to compatibility and healthy relationships than that. And I sometimes will see people will hyper-focus on this one box, which it's a box that they want to check, but it's not really a green. Maybe that's the difference, is there's a difference between your personal boxes that you want to check and green flags. Like, you want to have a lot of green flag meaning go ahead with this relationship, right? Red flag is halt, stop. Green flag is go ahead if you want to, And all the green flags, or at least most of them, or all of them, should be at least some, there'd be a rating. Maybe it's not a box. It's like with differentiation, what number. I just had this vision of some of y'all getting together and going on Tinder dates, and then you have this rating thing. And so maybe there are 10 green flags, each from 1 to 10, and then each dating partner has an index from 0 to 100, and you could communicate with a fellow Psychology in Seattle fan and be like, hey, I dated a 48 the other night. Not bad, 48. Well, I dated a 22. That was a disaster. Because it's all about degrees. It's not like an on-off binary. There's a spectrum of ability with differentiation and with security and self-awareness and this kind of thing. Oh, and there should be subtitles to it, like how would you know, to quote Whitney Houston, how it hit in 1986. I just looked at the top 100 hits of 1986, just all jams. I don't know if it's because I was 15 at the time and all those songs were pumped into my head from Top 40 radio. Also 1984, 1985, of course, anyway. The point is how would you know? So you'd have to, under each of the 10 green flags, there would be maybe 2 or 3 different questions that you would ask, maybe even ask them. Oh yeah, interview questions. Ooh. So you could ask, like, you're at a date, Tinder date, or whatever, and you ask, so to get at self-awareness, you would ask something like, so maybe it would be like a third date thing. It'd be like, and you'd bust out your clipboard and you'd take out your pen. You'd be like, okay, so work with me here. When was the last time you felt afraid that someone's going to reject you? When was the last time you were in a romantic relationship and you felt like someone was about to reject you or they weren't being accepting of you? And how did that go for you? How did it feel? And how did you deal with it? Okay, don't mind me. I'm just going to take some notes. But that's important information. I mean, if you get a bad answer to that, like that's a 0 on that dimension, and that'll hurt you. I mean, that'll hurt their prospects, right? But everyone else has these other boxes, like, oh, career-minded, oh, hot, oh, I want to roll around with them naked. Yes, these are all boxes that I've checked, and the green flags have not also been evaluated. Now, I imagine that it would narrow it down quite a bit. And this sort of stuff should be on the Tinder profile, right? Maybe they should require an evaluation, which would never happen, but yeah. I mean, it wouldn't fit on a shirt unless there were only like 4 green flags with like 2 or 3 items on each or something. I don't know why I want to put on a shirt. I just find that delightful. I put the apology components on a shirt, but maybe I could make a page on my website where you can click in and it'll give you a score or something. I don't know. I like this though, because you could also use it for friends. or bosses, or people that are in your life, like a parent or a family member that, and then given the score that you give the person, you would know whether or not you could lean into them and trust them. And or it would give you a guideline of what you should be yourself as well. That these are the things that are helpful in relationships according to research. It's just not I wouldn't be just making this crap up. This is research oriented, attachment, differentiation, self-awareness. All these things have been thoroughly evaluated up and down. I mean, not completely, but mountains of research in this arena that I could be basing it on. And there are even measures for these things that you can ask a psychologist, someone who's qualified, such as myself. You can't ask me because I'm busy doing this. I'm busy yammering on this YouTube channel. I don't have time for psychological evaluations anymore. But you could hire a psychologist, and they could actually administer a differentiation scale to you, a self-awareness scale to you, a attachment scale to you, meaning that there's an evaluation, there's standardized testing for attachment style, standardized interviews. So yeah, wow. I mean, who knows if I'm pretty busy these days, so maybe I'll never get around to it, but it's interesting to think about. All right, well, that does it for that episode. If you didn't know already, we have an audio podcast in which you can listen on your phone, on your podcast app, in which we go much further into these topics. So you can join us there. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.